Décembre 1928. John Gilbert, celui que l'on surnomme The Great Lover, a connu une ascension fulgurante à l'image de Charlie Chaplin ou Douglas Fairbanks. Mais 3 ans plus tard, l'acteur le mieux payé d'Hollywood est oublié de tous. Sa carrière est celle d'une étoile filante, brève, furieuse et passionnée, meurtrie par un système et par son inlassable conflit avec Louis B. Mayer, le puissant producteur de la MGM. John Gilbert, né John Cecil Pringle, voit le jour en 1897 à Logan City, dans l'Utah. Ses parents sont comédiens dans une petite troupe de théâtre ambulant. Quand John a 5 ans, sa mère se remarie avec un certain Walter Gilbert et le petit John, surnommé aussi Jacques, prendra son nom. Trimballé de foyer en foyer et parfois maltraité, il apprend à lire en faisant répéter sa mère lors des tournées.
So when Jack was 15, his mother died and his stepfather told him that he was on his own from there, that he had no ability to support a child. So he gave him $15 and sent him out to San Francisco. He said, there are a lot of jobs out there. Since the earthquake, you know, there's a lot of opportunity. You'll be fine. So this kid got out on a train to San Francisco and struggled to keep himself alive. He did all kinds of menial jobs, but he had this dream of the movies.
En cette année 1915, je décide d'aller tenter ma chance à Hollywood. Aidé par mon beau-père, je reçois une proposition d'emploi par Thomas Ince, qui a fondé un immense studio de production appelé Dainville. Hollywood, c'est un peu le paradis sur terre. On y fabrique de la pluie et les jeunes filles, après le travail, vont à la plage. On me confie des rôles de figurants. Je commence à croquer la vie à pleines dents.
John Gilbert came from a theatrical family, but not a successful one. He was very poor when he started out, and started out as an extra in movies. He worked his way up rather quickly, actually. It only took him about 5 years to go from extra to supporting player to star, which is a very quick road. He did historical roles, he did westerns, so he got a chance to do a lot of different things early in his career before he was typecast as a romantic leading man. And he hated being typecast as a romantic leading man. He did not think he was good looking. He thought he was too skinny, he thought his nose was too big, so he was embarrassed at being called a great lover.
Mais le studio Dainville est racheté et très vite, John Gilbert se retrouve désœuvré. Les rôles qu'il convoite lui sont refusés. Il montre alors des signes d'amertume qui accompagneront toute sa carrière. À cette époque, Hollywood n'en est encore qu'à ses balbutiements. Producteurs et caméramans en tête, ces pionniers veulent tout expérimenter. Alléchés par des profits de plus en plus prometteurs, les financiers de Wall Street cherchent à investir dans ce nouvel Eldorado et de nombreux entrepreneurs venus d'Europe deviennent producteurs. La concurrence est féroce. Quelques studios émergent. La Famous Players Lasky, qui deviendra la Paramount, la MGM, fondée par Marcus Lowe, William Fox, les frères Warner et United Artists, qui sera créée par les acteurs Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, Charlie Chaplin et le réalisateur David W. Griffith.
When John Gilbert came to Hollywood, the American movie industry was very concerned that if war broke out in Europe, all their theaters would cease to operate. They would lose tons of revenue. But the point is this, is that the war really was building up the industry because all the studios were making films about the war. By 1915, 16, 17, and 18, almost all production was related to the war effort in some way. I don't mean just making training films. I mean films about it was propaganda films, pretty much, against the Germans.
It was quite a party when we heard that the First World War of our time was over.
Après l'hécatombe provoquée par la Première Guerre mondiale, suivie de la grippe espagnole qui fera près de 40 millions de morts, l'Europe et les États-Unis connaissent 10 années d'effervescence et de libération totale. Les années folles résonnent comme une parenthèse enchantée jusqu'au crash de 1929. En 1919, le Volstead Act renforce la prohibition aux États-Unis. Les réseaux mafieux de production et de distribution d'alcool s'organisent et se développent dans des bars clandestins, alimentés par la contrebande. De nombreuses salles de danse ouvrent dans tout le pays et participent à l'essor des orchestres de jazz.
The moan of the sax, the beat of the drum, new notes, rising notes, and the screech of the times comes from a speakeasy queen. Hello, sucker!
This was a crazy time. So this was reflected in Hollywood, that they had the Hollywood parties. With the drinking, the champagne, and the flapper music. This was wild times. And the films reflected it. This was a time of great expansion of the film industry. There was more films made, more money made, and more stars made in the silent film era of the 20s than all the eras put together of film.
C'est à cette époque que la presse people se développe et nourrit l'intérêt vorace et croissant du public pour la vie privée de ses idoles. De nombreux scandales éclatent et des stars décèdent des suites de leur addiction aux drogues, laissant entrevoir les liens d'Hollywood avec la mafia. Ces épisodes sombres d'Hollywood poussent alors les grands studios à bâtir un arsenal publicitaire visant à contrôler l'image de leurs stars.
The industry was panicking at this time at the horrible publicity of all of this going on, and they formed the Motion Picture Producers Association, later known as the Censor Board. And they would police, the film industry would police themselves.
À cette époque, John Gilbert démarre une fructueuse collaboration avec Maurice Tourneur, qui apprécie son tempérament vif et passionné. Réalisateur français émigré à Hollywood, Maurice Tourneur enchaîne les succès d'estime et devient son mentor. John signe un contrat à $400 par semaine. Je n'ai jamais été aussi heureux. Travailler 18 heures par jour, écrire, co-réaliser, titrer, couper et surtout jouer.
Many actors who were not just actors, they aspired to be directors. And I know that John Gilbert was aspiring to be a director and a writer himself. These were the Thomas Ince, Tourneur, Vidor, these are the people that gave him the chance to not just be an actor, but to be more than that.
John touche à tout. Acteur, scénariste, assistant réalisateur. Son contrat prévoit même qu'il réalise 4 films. Mais sa première réalisation est un échec et le fragilise. Amoureux fou d'une jeune actrice, Léatrice Joy, il l'épouse quelques mois plus tard. Égérie de la Paramount, elle fait la une des magazines. Cela affecte Gilbert et leur relation devient de plus en plus tumultueuse. En manque d'argent et de confiance, John se résout à accepter un contrat d'acteur à la Fox, alors en pleine croissance. Mais les films commerciaux produits rebutent ses prétentions artistiques.
So when John Gilbert went to, of course, Fox Studio, he was given bigger pictures, quality, more quality. It wasn't just westerns or, thrill things. He was being groomed, that's it. Groomed as a leading man, as a star that women want to see.
By this time, Jacques was under contract to William Fox, which was a movie-making factory. But Mother was at Paramount and doing very good films for Samuel Goldwyn and making much more money than he was. So this was a point of friction. But in all of the potboiler films that he was making, only 2 of the Fox films are still around, and one was The Count of Monte Cristo.
Sorti en 1922, Monte Cristo élève John Gilbert au rang de star. En 1924, John Gilbert se laisse convaincre par le jeune producteur Irving Thalberg de rejoindre l'ambitieuse Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer qui vient d'être créée. Cette société, dirigée par Marcus Lowe, l'un des pionniers fondateurs d'Hollywood, concentre toute la filière du cinéma, de la production à l'exploitation. L'industrie du cinéma moderne est née.
He was making a few comedies and romantic adventures and period pieces, and they decided to make him their big romantic star when they signed him on. His friend Norma Shearer had a lot to do with that. She was a rising star herself, and they worked very well together. MGM was just starting out. They did not yet have a big stable of stars like they did in later years. So John Gilbert was one of their first big acquisitions. In the early 1920s, no one yet knew how good an actor he was, how easy he was to work with, or how difficult. They hired a number of directors and cinematographers and actors and actresses, and it was a matter of who will work out and who won't. The studio was just forming at the time, so everything was a risk, everything was a gamble.
L'Arme de clown est le premier film de Gilbert pour la MGM, réalisé par Victor Sistroms avec le grand acteur Lon Chaney. John interprète un jeune cavalier qui tombe amoureux d'une belle écuyère jouée par Norma Shearer. Ce sera le début d'une grande amitié avec celle qui épousera bientôt Irving Thalberg, l'un des dirigeants de la MGM.
In order to be successful at a major film studio, you had to be a company player. You had to do what you were told. You had to take the kind of roles you were told to take, whether you liked them or not. You had to take a certain amount of terrible films in order to be given a good film. Joan Crawford was the perfect example of a team player. She did what she was told, she dressed as she was told, and she took the kind of roles she was told. John Gilbert was not a team player. He wanted to do great films all the time. Every one of his films had to be a great artistic masterpiece, and that is not realistic.
Dans les bureaux de la MGM, on s'active autour de la prochaine production, La Veuve Joyeuse. Irving Thalberg veut donner le premier rôle à John Gilbert et Louis B. Mayer, qui pourtant n'aime pas son arrogance, finit par se laisser convaincre et l'impose auprès du réalisateur fantasque Erich von Stroheim.
Gilbert is going to be in his film. And as I explained earlier, they didn't get along at first. But then Gilbert saw this man knows what he's doing, except he's eccentric. He doesn't understand the spending of money and budgets with films. He makes a film with thousands of feet of scenes that are going to be wasted and thrown away. He wanted real caviar on the set.
John et von Stroheim partagent beaucoup de points communs. Un talent reconnu, une ascension fulgurante vers la gloire, mais un comportement ingérable qui effraie les producteurs. Certaines scènes érotiques font scandale, mais le film connaît un immense succès et établit John Gilbert comme l'une des plus grandes stars du studio. Où que j'aille, j'étais salué par des murmures d'étonnement. Le métier d'acteur auquel je résistais à mes débuts, que je tournais en dérision depuis 7 ans, m'apportait le succès, la richesse, la gloire. En 1926, l'acteur Rudolph Valentino décède à l'âge de 31 ans. Ses obsèques sont nationales. Louis B. Mayer et Irving Thalberg profitent de l'occasion pour asseoir définitivement John Gilbert comme l'unique grand romantique.
After Rudolph Valentino died in 1926, John Gilbert was the top leading man in Hollywood. It's hard to overestimate how big a star he was at the time. From 1926 through 1929, John Gilbert was probably the biggest male star in Hollywood.
Irving Thalberg created the title of the Great Lover for him. John would rather have been called garbage. He simply couldn't stand that concept. He hated that kind of movie, he hated that kind of characterization, but it sold tickets and that's where the business was. So he was stuck with it. Great lover of the silent screen.
Dans ce film amateur tourné en 1926, John s'amuse avec son ami le producteur Irving Thalberg à parodier les westerns stéréotypés de l'époque. La même année, King Vidor réalise Bardelis le Magnifique, où John Gilbert dévoile un véritable talent de cascadeur, loin de l'image du grand romantique.
It turns out that instead of being a sloppy old romance or something, it's a very elegant satire and rather a spoof on some of the pictures that were being made at that time, with a lot of interesting love scenes, but also with Jacques doing a Douglas Fairbanks, scaling walls, swinging on ropes, and heroic cries of triumph, and it's much fun to watch.
Mais Louis B. Mayer veut exploiter à fond cette image du Great Lover et enferme John de plus en plus dans des rôles romantiques. Il l'associe à une jeune actrice venant de Suède, Greta Gustafsson, que Mayer renommera Greta Garbo. Sur le tournage du torride La chair et le diable, Garbo et Gilbert tombent amoureux. Leur idylle est le centre d'attention de tous les journaux. Je voyais naître sous mes yeux une véritable histoire d'amour que rien ni personne n'aurait pu éclipser, dira le réalisateur Clarence Brown.
And when they started shooting pictures together, they opened at a railroad station when he looks at this woman getting out of the train and walking across, and he's like this, you know, transfixed. I mean, she is the most beautiful thing you ever saw. Gorgeous face, moves like a tiger, lovely. He said their romance was so apparent that sometimes when they were in the middle of a love scene, he would simply have to close down the set and move the cameras off to another part of the stage and then come back when it was calm again. And he said it was a real passionate love affair, and it came across on the films. You couldn't miss it. The love was there.
Les premiers jours de notre amour me firent entrevoir le paradis. Greta est sûrement la créature la plus admirable qui ait jamais vécu sur Terre. Impossible de décrire les multiples aspects de sa personnalité. Tantôt c'est une enfant espiègle et insouciante, tantôt elle est majestueuse et passionnée, mystérieuse et inaccessible. En quelques mois, Garbo va devenir l'égale de Gilbert. On la surnomme la divine.
When he played on screen with Greta Garbo, it really seemed like they were in love with each other. And he was certainly in love with her. But as Marlene Dietrich once said when she was asked about method acting, The audience doesn't care what you are feeling. What's important is what you make the audience feel. So whether or not Greta Garbo was in love with John Gilbert doesn't matter. The important part is she was able to make it seem on screen like she was in love with him.
Garbo et Gilbert formeront un couple de cinéma dans plusieurs productions de la MGM. Dans Anna Karénine, rebaptisée Love, la MGM va utiliser leur histoire d'amour pour défrayer la chronique. Quand Garbo sera devenu une star et que John sera sur le déclin, elle restera pour lui un soutien sans faille. La trajectoire de John Gilbert est indissociable de sa relation à son producteur, Louis B. Mayer, né en Ukraine en 1884. Il émigre très jeune avec sa famille au Canada. Il voue un véritable culte à sa mère et à ses sœurs et exercera une gestion paternaliste de la MGM. Gilbert et Mayer étaient diamétralement opposés. Autant John était désinvolte, raffiné, méprisant les conventions sociales, autant Mayer était solennel, conservateur et avide de respectabilité.
Louis B. Mayer is thought of as MGM. You think of MGM, you think Louis B. Mayer. He did not control the studio. He had money people to answer to, the Skank brothers and the stockholders. Louis B. Mayer was under the gun himself, very much so. He could not decide what films were made. He could not decide what stars were going to be stars. He had people to answer to as well, which is why he was so often so temperamental with his stars.
Like any of the other studios, they would make their pleasing pictures, and also they would make a few art pictures on the side. And that's what they were after to get the Oscars for this. When the Oscars were formed in 1927, everything after 1927, the studios always had a unit that would make Oscar-worthy films.
À la MGM, dont la devise est « plus d'étoiles que dans le ciel », les succès s'enchaînent. Mais John Gilbert devient de plus en plus exigeant et incontrôlable. Il aime l'ivresse de la vie, et ses frasques feront la une de la presse à scandale. Son comportement exaspère Louis B. Mayer, qui vit l'arrogance de Gilbert comme une provocation personnelle. Mayer attend de ses acteurs que leur vie privée n'entache pas l'image des studios. Il supporte mal les dérapages de ses protégés et ses altercations avec Gilbert sont fréquentes. Lors du mariage de King Vidor, John, qui souhaite ardemment épouser Garbo, a une violente dispute avec Mayer.
There was a famous story that Louis B. Mayer, made some sexual innuendo about Greta Garbo to John Gilbert, that was his girlfriend at the time, and supposedly John Gilbert hit him, and Louis B. Mayer said, "I'll ruin you for this." Everything I've read about Louis B. Mayer, it seems to me it indicates that he was certainly a serious businessman and certainly not an artist, and I'm sure that would cause some friction with a real artist like John Gilbert.
C'est sous la direction de King Vidor que John Gilbert trouvera certains de ses plus grands succès, comme notamment La Grande Parade. John y interprète un soldat américain qui tombe amoureux d'une jeune Française alors qu'il doit partir pour le front. King Vidor signe ici un des chefs-d'œuvre du cinéma muet. Aucun amour ne m'a exalté comme le tournage de ce film. Aucun exploit ne me passionnera jamais autant. Aucune récompense n'égalera celle d'avoir participé à la Grande Parade. Ce fut le sommet de ma carrière. Tout ce qui a suivi n'est que futilité.
The Big Parade was a huge success. It was one of the biggest successes for MGM until Gone with the Wind came along. There was a lot of comedy in it, and there was a lot of character work in it, but it was a very harsh look at what the war was really like. He did a marvelous job in it. He shaved off his mustache and did not look like the romantic leading man. It was a very satisfying project for him. He loved working on it and said, this is the one. This is the film I'll be remembered for.
Après l'immense succès de la Grande Parade, John Gilbert accède au firmament des plus grands acteurs de l'époque. Le 19 avril 1927, John est arrêté pour ivresse sur la voie publique. Il est condamné à 10 jours de prison. Louis B. Mayer est furieux, mais John, star de la MGM, est intouchable.
All the studios had a contract. There was moral clauses. You couldn't do this. You couldn't play around. You couldn't get drunk. You should stay married to the same woman. In other words, we have the person, John Gilbert, and the star, John Gilbert, the asset. And the studios considered him a movie star, an asset, that they could move around like a pawn on the table, the chess table.
Le tournage du film La Bohème marque la fin de la grande amitié entre John Gilbert et le réalisateur King Vidor, tombés tous deux amoureux de l'héroïne du film, la merveilleuse Lillian Gish.
People ask me who was the greatest love of John Gilbert's life, and I tell them the last woman he ever saw. He would fall in love at the drop of a hat. He fell in love with most of his co-workers, of course, Greta Garbo, Lillian Gish, Barbara Lamar, Mae Murray, and fortunately, some of them just became good friends.
Le 6 octobre 1927, le cinéma sonore fait son apparition. Les frères Warner révolutionnent l'industrie du cinéma en sortant le premier film parlant, Le chanteur de jazz avec Al Johnson.
Mary, I'm coming. Oh God, I hope I'm not late. Mary, don't you know me? It's a little crazy. I'd walk a million miles for one of your smiles. On my knee.
L'immense succès public du premier film parlant ouvre l'ère des comédies musicales et accroît la compétition entre les grands studios. Très endettés, les frères Warner jouent leur survie et William Fox cherche à devenir le plus grand producteur au monde. La Paramount et la MGM mettront plus de temps à réagir.
The period from 1928 to the early 1930s was terrifying for everyone because you not only had the economic depression, but you had the complete changeover from silent films to talking films, and the musicians in the theaters were all thrown out of work. There were hundreds of suicides of people who no longer had to play in the movie theaters for the accompaniment of the films.
Après bien des hésitations, Louis B. Mayer se décide à faire rugir Léo le lion et engage la MGM dans le cinéma parlant. L'ère du muet touche à sa fin.
Louis B. Mayer, like other producers, hated talking films because, first of all, it meant building an entire new sound stage. It meant, are we going with sound on film or sound on disc? No one knew how the technology was going. They had to create an entire new way of filmmaking within a period of a couple of years.
De nombreuses carrières de stars furent brisées net quand le cinéma parlant déferla dans les salles du monde entier. Douglas Fairbanks et Mary Pickford virent leur étoile scintiller et s'éteindre peu après l'arrivée du parlant. Clara Bow n'échappe pas à cette fatalité. La hit girl, dont la spontanéité avait enchanté le public, ne se reconnaît pas dans les contraintes d'un cinéma sonore figé à ses débuts.
Among the movie industry's 30,000 employees are men and women from nearly 300 trades and professions. Nowhere in the world are there craftsmen who take more exacting care. For in the making of a picture, carelessness in one single detail.
En septembre 1927, le décès du fondateur de la MGM, Marcus Lowe, attise l'appétit vorace des studios concurrents. William Fox négocie alors le rachat de la MGM avec le nouveau président sans en avertir Mayer lui-même sur la sellette. L'offre de rachat est faramineuse et la MGM est tenue de garantir les contrats de ses stars. John Gilbert, qui souhaite vivement quitter la MGM, devient la clé de cette transaction. United Artists lui propose alors un contrat en lui laissant une grande liberté artistique. Pour le garder, la MGM finit par lui proposer un contrat colossal d'1,5 million sur 3 ans. John Gilbert devient alors l'acteur le mieux payé au monde. En octobre 1929, Wall Street s'effondre. C'est le début de la Grande Dépression. William Fox perd toute sa fortune. La fusion n'aura jamais lieu. Mayer négocie alors une baisse de salaire général des employés du studio. John, lui, ne se soumet pas et refuse de toucher à son contrat en or. Acculé financièrement et excédé par son comportement individualiste, Mayer décide alors d'employer tous les moyens pour se débarrasser de Gilbert.
By the laws of the contract, he had to show up at the studio whether he was working or not. So every day he would drive up, and sometimes the gateman would pretend not to recognize him, and he had to show identification to get in. And he was left out of celebrations and things. I believe the reason for this was that Mayer was afraid that if they just let him go at the end of his contract, he could easily have gone to another studio. But that would have been harsh competition for MGM. So that it was logical for them, if they're going to get rid of their biggest money-making star, they had to destroy him. And he was a fragile character anyway, and given to drinking, and this just ground him down and down and down.
Après avoir vécu à toute vitesse, je ne pourrais pas m'installer confortablement et m'occuper des fleurs, jouer une partie de golf et fumer une pipe contemplative. Je ne me fais pas d'illusions. La personne la plus facile à tromper au monde, c'est soi-même. Et j'essaie de ne pas le faire.
Louis B. Mayer saw that he could get rid of a very expensive star and hire less expensive stars. He wanted John Gilbert to get disgusted and cancel his contract and leave, and John Gilbert refused. He said, I am working out this contract and bringing in this paycheck, even if you have me mopping floors.
En 1929 sort le premier film parlant de John Gilbert, His Glorious Night, réalisé par Lionel Barrymore. John est encore à son zénith et le film est un succès. Pourtant, les scènes d'amour déclenchent des réactions moqueuses du public.
Never come. Please, the window's open.
open above.
But you know that I've been there for 2 hours, waiting.
I couldn't come before.
But you could have sent some word. Oh, darling, dearest one, what have I done but wait ever since I've known you?
It was just bad dialogue. It was the very first time anybody had said, "I love you, my darling, I love you, I love you." It made audiences laugh to hear this love scene, an intimate love scene, finally spoken out loud, and everybody laughed, and he became the target for ridicule, and also the myth that some of these silent film stars had difficult voices, and that's what killed their careers. And this,
I love you. I've told you that 100 times this week. I love you.
And I told you not to tell me that again. I don't wish to hear it.
But what is a man to do, darling, when he loves so helplessly as I?
John Gilbert did not know how to act for talkies because no one knew how to act for talkies. It was a very difficult time. They were bringing in Broadway actors who knew how to talk and who could project their voices and had an entirely different way of acting. His third wife, Ina Claire, was a great Broadway actress, and she gave him advice, but in such a way that really made him feel 2 feet tall.
L'image du great lover romantique se fissure, et du jour au lendemain, la sanction du public tombe. Ce genre-là ne l'intéresse plus. John se voit cantonné à des productions à petit budget et sans intérêt. Certains magazines malveillants évoquent sa voix comme étant la cause de son déclin. John Gilbert devient de plus en plus lunatique et amer.
He had as good a voice as Clark Gable or James Cagney. He had very good pronunciation. If you look at his early talking films, he caught on very quickly how to act for talkies. So his voice had little, if nothing, to do with the downslide of his career. He had no self-confidence. On the other hand, he loved being a star and he loved being admired. He was a very complex, difficult person. He was an alcoholic, he was self-destructive, and he knew he was self-destructive, and he either couldn't or wouldn't stop himself. He would laugh about it and say, "Yes, I know I'm doing this to myself."
Lay down the line. All right, Sam, pick up.
Avec la crise économique, le cinéma hollywoodien devient trop éloigné de la réalité quotidienne. Le public réclame de nouveaux visages. Clark Gable devient l'incarnation de la virilité, le héros par excellence. Sur le casting de La Belle de Saïgon, les dirigeants de la MGM remplacent John Gilbert par le nouveau King d'Hollywood. Gilbert voit que les projets auxquels il s'intéresse lui sont refusés. Il s'enferme alors chez lui et reprend l'écriture de son scénario intitulé Downstairs. Pendant le tournage du film réalisé par son ami Montabell, John tombe amoureux de la jeune actrice Virginia Bruce, qui deviendra sa 4e épouse.
In it, he played the kind of part he really liked. It was the villainous chauffeur who insinuated himself into an aristocratic family and tore the place apart. And everyone who saw it thought it was a great performance. But again, it was not what the fans wanted to see from John Gilbert.
Greta Garbo, au sommet de sa carrière, insiste auprès d'Irving Thalberg pour lui obtenir un rôle dans le très attendu La Reine Christine de Rouben Mamoulian. John comprend qu'il tient là une chance unique de revenir au sommet.
By the time he made Queen Christina, Greta Garbo was possibly the biggest star at MGM, and John Gilbert was not only a has-been, but Louis B. Mayer did not want to give him the satisfaction of a co-starring role. It was a very difficult shoot for him because he knew he was not wanted. and he needed desperately to be wanted.
Malgré le succès du film, la carrière de John ne se relance pas. La MGM a préféré concentrer toute la publicité sur Greta Garbo en évinçant John Gilbert.
Spain. My home is on a white cliff overlooking the sea. You'll never leave me, will you?
No, never.
Your Majesty.
Shh. You must rest. Rest.
La santé fragile de Gilbert, qui boit de plus en plus, inquiète les producteurs. Ils hésitent à lui proposer de nouveaux projets. John s'enferme dans sa propriété. J'aimerais avoir 67 ans au lieu de 37. C'est horrible de penser que la vie s'est arrêtée avant d'avoir atteint le milieu du courant. L'actrice Marlène Dietrich, qu'il fréquente depuis quelques mois, ne parvient que de rares fois à l'extraire de chez lui.
She took him on both as a lover and as a mentor. She tried to get his career back on track. She tried to get him to stop drinking. She got him signed to a contract to play supporting roles in her films.
En 1934, la Columbia lui offre un rôle dans Le Capitaine déteste la mer. John tourne alors son 103e film. Il y interprète un journaliste alcoolique qui effectue une croisière dans l'espoir d'arrêter de boire et d'écrire un livre.
Chap, do you mind saying a few words to the folks? Hello, everybody. Well, folks, it about turned out just as I expected. A knockout in the first round. Hello, Ma, I'll be right home.
John Gilbert never wanted to leave acting, and he never seriously considered going on the stage again. He just kind of gave up. He was tired. He said that if he couldn't act in films, he would just sit there in his beautiful house and drink himself to death, and that's exactly what he did.
I think what his loss of control, based on depression from losing his career and just being forgotten and left out, and also unfairly criticized for his supposedly the sound of his voice, totally unjustified criticism. I think that that's what ultimately killed him, because he did lose control and therefore did drink too much.
Fin 1935, John Gilbert passe un essai pour le film Désir de Frank Borzage, produit par la Paramount. Mais il est victime d'une crise cardiaque et la production le retire du casting. Le 9 janvier 1936, suite à une nouvelle attaque, John Gilbert meurt à l'âge de 38 ans, oublié de tous. En 1951, Louis B. Mayer est évincé de la MGM. Il décédera 6 ans plus tard, à l'âge de 73 ans. La vie de John Gilbert a inspiré de nombreux chefs-d'œuvre. A Star is Born de William Wellman obtiendra en 1938 l'Oscar de la meilleure histoire originale. Sorti en 2011, le film en noir et blanc et muet, The Artist, de Michel Hazanavicius, remportera une pluie de récompenses, dont 5 Oscars. À Hollywood, l'usine à rêve ne s'arrête jamais.
After you've gone and left me crying, after you've gone, there's no denying you feel blue, you feel sad, you'll miss the dearest pal you ever had. There'll come a time, now don't forget it, there'll come a time when you'll regret it. Someday, when you grow lonely, your heart will break like mine and you'll want me only. After you've gone, after you've gone away. Now won't you listen, dearie, while I say, how could you tell me that you're going away? Don't say that we must part. Don't break my aching heart. You know I've loved you truly many years, loved you night and day. How can you leave me? Can't you see my tears? Listen while I say, after you've gone and left me crying, after you've gone, there's no